Hi everyone, this is Autumn. I wanted to talk about female narcissists. I wanted to give a shout out to Narcissist Free. Thank you so much for the kind words regarding my videos, and I have watched probably almost all of yours as well, and hers have helped me so much, especially at the beginning parts of this whole journey when I literally was like couldn't get out of bed. And I really appreciate the shout out and the recognition. So I wanted to talk about female narcissists in a general term. I have a couple of podcasts and videos that I am working on to follow up to talk more about the 4 main types of female narcissists. I believe that female narcissists are greatly underrepresented in the subculture, if you will, or the healing community of narcissistic abuse. And even the intellectual / educational parts online and blogs and videos of the cluster B personality disorder, sociopaths, psychopaths, narcissists, borderlines. So I think this is for a couple of reasons, and I think it does male narcissistic abuse victims a grave injustice. Already, it can be extremely difficult for men to recognize consciously and admit when they have been abused by a woman. This is just how culture has raised us. It becomes shameful for men. For women, it's a lot easier. We can wear it as a badge. Men, not so much, unfortunately. So, again, I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I'm not about political correctness. I refuse to have that be a part of my ideology, my practicum. It's the reason why I got out of mainstream therapy and psychology as a psychologist. After I got done with my PsyD, I did like a bridge program. I'm a classical professional violinist and a journalist. And I went back to school later on in my late 20s to become a psychologist. So anyway, I got out of the mainstream because I will not inject all this nonsense that is going on in the last decade or two of mainstream psychology and therapeutic models. Okay, that said, I believe that with men, because female narcissists are underrepresented and under acknowledged in our society, that what happens with men is that they have a lack of understanding, a lack of resources. They are more shameful to admit of abuse by a woman, and they are more likely to, because of these things, they are more and because, again, the whole mainstream psychology therapy, at least in the United States, and I would dare to say, well, yeah, I lived in Denmark for several years, and in Europe, at least in Denmark where I lived, it's hyper-feminized. The whole mental health industry is hyper-feminized. So here's what men have to do. I mean, go online even and look for videos on men and female narcissists and narcissistic abuse. There's a lot about moms, which is interesting. If there wasn't a lot of female narcissists, there wouldn't be so many narcissistic mothers, right? But there is this underrepresentation. There's these and there's this 75% of narcissists are men. I disagree wholeheartedly. I don't have data, but I believe the data is skewed because of the whole way in which a lot of the data is retrieved, which is either by the criminal system, the penal system, or it's retrieved by therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists, them giving the data from their patients, clients. Problem is that women are, I hate to say it, but they're better at covering things up. And in that way, they're more malignant sometimes. They're more destructive. They package it in ways that look socially acceptable. They also are able to get away with more in relationships. It's the truth. the way our society is set up, it tends to be, again, on a, not, so I'm not saying in the individual level. The individual level, I've seen many men, unfortunately, get away with horrible abuse on their wives or girlfriends. But I've seen many women get away with horrible abuse to their husbands and boyfriends because there isn't the same resources for men as there's for women, and it's much more stigmatized. So you're not going to see a man go to an abuse shelter. It just doesn't happen, unfortunately. And narcissist is a narcissist is a narcissist. It does not matter what color they come in, what planet they come from, what gender they have, what genitalia they have. It does not matter. They're highly destructive, horribly abusive, often extremely covert in the way that they do it. They invoke enormous trauma and really can ruin another person. So men tend to have lack of resources. So I'm here to say that there's by far and large just as many female narcissists. I also think that borderlines and histrionics are by virtue of the way in which they express their emotions, and they are so self-absorbed. They almost always have at least significant traits of narcissistic personality disorder, but often just covered up, again, covertly. And I think what happens with men, we see this whole MGTOW movement. Now, I do not endorse any extreme group of ideology or philosophy, especially when it has to do with generalizations of society or of people. I don't even truly believe in the feminist movement as it's come to be in the last 30, 40 years. When it comes to MGTOW, definitely talking about the extremists. They are just as... Now, any extremist group is very destructive, so let's take them out of the picture. They're just malignants, and half of them are probably narcissists themselves. I want to talk about the decent men, the good men, that end up joining this groupthink, that end up becoming MGTOWs, that decide that they're not going to be around women anymore, that women are destructive, and they have labeled all women based on their individual experience with usually one or maybe two women in their life. Here's the issue. I think that men are not supported in they're not supported in even the online community, let alone the mental health community, therapeutically, especially narcissistic abuse. Look, it's already hard enough for people that have gone through this to get proper therapy, proper validation, proper information, proper recovery. It's already hard enough. It is twice as hard for men because of the way the mental health field is, the way most mainstream therapists are, and the way in which our society is set up. Just that simple. And so men are also culturally taught to be shameful of being, or be shamed to admit that they were abused by a woman. And therefore, underreport it, often never seek any help, often never even go into online communities, a lot of them. Definitely don't make videos like this. I want to give a shout out to Homunculus Mandrake, probably saying that wrong, but Mandrake channel. I'm incredibly impressed by him, and I have an enormous amount of respect for him as a man. Also, Narcissist Survivor, and a couple of others, because it takes a lot of insight and emotional strength to be able to admit abuse by a female and really work towards recovery and reaching out to other people. Okay. And it's not to come down on men who aren't able to do that, because it's no wonder they're not. I think that it's pretty much set up that way, and men are provoked into being ashamed to admit it. So this is how MGTOW, I believe, as a very large groupthink or ideology has started. I think, again, take the extremists out. I think that a lot of good, decent, kind-hearted, empathetic men had a bad experience with a narcissist or a sociopathic woman, were abused, and instead of admitting to themselves even, or even finding the education, but really admitting to themselves that this woman, this one experience, this woman was abusive, and this was particular to your marriage or that woman, they instead found it much more easier and less emasculating to say this is all women. All women are like this. The picture they paint, I've watched a lot of the, oh God, I don't remember his name. Probably, I consciously don't remember his name. Sandman or whoever the guy is that makes all these videos and kind of maybe one of the founders of the MGTOW movement, I guess. A lot of what they describe about women is narcissistic women, borderline women. And yet, because they had those experiences in their life, instead of seeing it for what it is, an individualized case of abuse, they now label all women to have those characteristics. And I think that as much as I do not necessarily agree with the MGTOW movement, again, I don't agree with the feminist movement either, I think that any one group or ideology that gives a blanket statement on another group of people is incredibly dangerous and always ends up losing any of its positive attributes that it started with, and it turns negative, and it turns into a group run by narcissists and self-centered people. That's what feminism became, essentially. And as much as I don't necessarily support the MGTOW movement and ideology, I also, and groupthink especially, I also understand why some of these men ended up there. Because there's just not the support and not the validation and the information. So, okay, I just want to put that out there when we talk about female narcissists, and this is kind of more geared towards men, and acknowledging that this maybe double standard or hypocrisy exists. And I want to kindly encourage all men that have been in a toxic relationship with a woman who treated them horribly, to rethink your notion that because one woman did it to you, this is how all women are. I want to encourage you to see it for what it really is, which it was an evil woman. It was a disordered woman who was selfish and pathological and who abused you. And if you can get to a place of reality, this is my last point, on my concept of philosophy of therapy. If you can get to a place of reality within your therapy model, recovery model, it doesn't have to be with a therapist, just whatever healing modality that you take on, either be by yourself, with a healthcare provider, with a life coach, with friends, with whomever, whatever modality or modalities that you employ to become a more healed person and a more enlightened person and self-aware person, if you can stick to reality, you'll be successful. The problem is this: because so much of our life is about masks and image and television and what it looks like and not what it is, the hyperfeminization of the mental health care, political correctness within the mental health care, and therapists and psychologists and other healers. These things inject a fake reality. Anytime a fake reality is within the healing process or the model of therapy, it's ineffective. That's it. Ineffective. Doesn't matter how much work you do. It's ineffective. This is why narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths and borderlines, this is why therapy does not work for them. Because they are incapable of getting out of denial. They're incapable of telling the truth, being honest with themselves and with other people. They're incapable of it. And when you cannot be truly honest within any modality of therapy or healing, it's unsuccessful. You could do it for 25 years. It's going to be unsuccessful. So the point should always be to get to a place of reality. Get out of denial. Be honest with yourself. Be realistic about what has happened. This is the place. This is the starting place. This is the only way that healing therapy is going to be effective in recovery and evolving into a more self-aware and enlightened person. So until the political correctness gets out of therapy, and until we have more therapists and psychologists and healers and mental health care professionals that think like this and are aware of the need for reality, even if it's completely politically incorrect, does not matter. You cannot assert it into the framework of therapy. I don't care what you want the world to be like. I don't care what you think the world should be like. I don't care what the TV tells you what the world should be like. I don't care what is right or wrong. I do not care. The minute you postulate and you start creating a shoulda, woulda, coulda onto the therapy process, and the minute you're in denial over your own actions, the minute you do not express them truthfully, is the minute it's ineffective. It's pointless. I would believe, and again, this is why I got out of mainstream therapy. I would believe, if you told me 90% of therapists and psychologists are pretty much ineffective in their therapy, I believe you. Because I believe that at least 90% of your typical therapists and psychologists and so on is buying into how we were taught in school, how, the TV talks to us, how media, the political correctness, and they're implementing and injecting a therapy model with political correctness, with feminism, with, male culpability, with blah, 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 whatever it is. Okay, so I just want to say that has to do with more, but, it does have to do with men. And I want to personally apologize. Not that I'm to blame for this. I want to apologize to men who've gone through narcissistic abuse. And apologize that you have not been represented the way you should be. That that females have not been represented the way that they should be. Narcissists. That men have a harder time. Because you shouldn't. But you do. Because of the way society is and because the way society is. So anyway, just a quick thing that ended up being, 18 minutes long. All right, guys, I'll see you soon. Namaste.